And I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for inviting me. I work with an International Arts Festival for children and families in Galway, so we're not principally engaged in the energy debate, but apart from running a week-long festival, we also have a lot of outreach and engagement projects that we do with schools. 48% of our audience is public and 52% is schools, so we have relationships with a lot of the primary schools in Galway city and county. And we partnered with the National University of Ireland in Galway. In 2011 we approached them, and in 2012 we started working with them and with the Regen Institute to create a project called BEAST, which stands for Baboró Environment, Arts, Science and Technology Project. And the whole purpose of it really was to engage primary school children in exploring the STEAM subjects. And we like to use the word STEAM rather than STEM, because we think the arts are just as much a part of that whole sort of STEM thing. So really there were three aims in it. One, the primary aim actually was to instill or improve levels of confidence and critical thinking, problem solving, creative thinking and team working in primary school children. To demonstrate in schools and to teachers, which we felt was really important, the use of the arts in teaching the school curriculum. So how you can interrogate parts of the curriculum by using creativity. And the third one was that we're hoping to create a project model that we can be replicated easily and effectively, and can be used by others as well to teach and to evaluate. So I'm going to, if anybody has any questions, I'm quite happy to answer them in the middle of all this if you want to interrupt me, or we can wait until the end. So we started with 8 primary schools, 4 city schools and 4 county schools. Galway is geographically quite a big county. It's on the west coast of Ireland, so it's on the Atlantic. And so the students were essentially looking at environmental issues, and the project focused on a low carbon future as its premise. That what would that look like, and what would we have to do to get there? So they learned about the science behind environmental issues. This particular school group was in the Ocean Research Centre out in Carna. They also worked with artists, so they worked with 8 different artists in 2012. And they just found new routes to learning. So we were finding ways of them, they worked together as teams. There was a lot of peer-to-peer learning on it as well. This was a teacher who has worked with us now she's in her 3rd year with us. She's in one of the schools, and her attitude towards the teaching of science has changed completely. It was her least favourite subject. She actually dreaded Tuesdays and Thursdays when she taught science. And now she just really enjoys the whole sort of using creativity to teach that particular subject. And this is one of the students, his response after his first workshop with one of the scientists. He thought the scientists blew things up actually, and he was a little bit scared, but he really likes doing this. And he was working with a scientist who was showing them how to make seaweed caviar. So the science behind, what we were doing, the actual approach, and we worked with the Regen Institute. And so they were our gateway into the university itself, and they would have resources in terms of getting scientists involved. So the reason, they had a whole load of reasons for getting involved. They have a big outreach program. They wanted to foster environmental stewardship, improve the understanding of STEM subjects. I mean, you can see for yourself the sort of topics that were of interest to them and why they would partner with an organisation like ours. But I think the biggest one actually was to foster collaborations with other organisations, because they have a remit to go out to the public as well as to be in the university. So how do they get involved? And it was very simple. They did a call out to all the researchers, sustainability researchers in NUI Galway, and we created 3 types of workshops, all taking the low carbon future as a premise. And these were the topics that were covered in the first year. So biodiversity, food production and coexistence, seaweeds and biofuels, eco-building, deep sea habitats and food chains, environment and disease, climate change and ocean acidification, alternative energy and green and sustainable IT. We ended up, after year 1, cutting down on the number of schools we worked with, primarily because the feedback we got from the social researchers, we wanted to measure the impact in the schools, in the communities and on the teachers as well over a period. And they said you either have to you have to make it a longitudinal study. You can't have impacts after 1 year. It's not going to work. You won't have any evidence. We think what you really need to do is do a longitudinal study, but do it with less schools so you have more impact. Because obviously there were financial constraints, but there were also constraints around the personnel, you know, and how we would manage a project of that size. We were talking about 200 children, we were talking about 120 workshops each year. It just wasn't going to work for us as an 8-school project, so we cut it down to 3, and we've had much better quality of engagement with those 3 schools. What they've looked at is seaweed and biofuels, alternative energy, green and sustainable IT. And actually the third one was kind of interesting because they started off with eco-building, but they've ended up looking at all of the engineering, green engineering and energy harvesting from people. So what did we do? So we did a whole load of, I'm just going to show you this really brief film. This was Ed Curry, who did Green IT. So his whole project was around the first year that he worked with these students, who were 8 at the time, was he was looking at smart devices in the home and, you know, the impacts they can have.
2, 3.
For the School Coming and Katrina Science Workshop, we introduced the students to electricity and the environmental impacts of its generation, using a smart meter to discover the power usage of home appliances. The class explored how the smart grid and intelligent devices can communicate using the future internet to optimise energy usage, reduce costs and minimise environmental impacts. For our art workshop, we used cartoon animation and the creation of a story as a medium for the children to express what they had learned from Edward Curry about pollution and how it can be combated with conscious minds and new technologies. The children portrayed themselves as characters called the Green Team, using their smart devices to destroy all the evil pollutionators.
So, the Ryan Institute, this is what they want to do. They wanted to interest and empower the children. They wanted to encourage teachers to include environmental aspects in core teaching materials, to support researchers to develop, and to encourage community interest in and understanding of their own research. The scientists wanted to make science real, and this is really important to them, to move students really to feel that science is everywhere and that scientific research is valuable. And the artists wanted to help the children conceptualize what they learned from the scientists. So it was very much a sort of a 3-part approach led by Baboró. The benefits to the students was a change in attitude towards science and technology. One parent reported that it opened up their child's thinking, better understanding of the role of universities and of science as a career. As we all know, you know, there's been a lot of challenge. I don't know about in the UK, but I know in Ireland, the take-up of science topics as subjects in 3rd level there's been quite a battle to get students to take it up. Increased engagement and learning was a very important part of what we wanted to do as an organisation, because using a project like this, rather than just having, you know, the academic side of things, you get a lot of children who just don't engage academically, but if they're in active learning and they're very much involved in the whole creative side of things, it can really change how they see learning, and it's much more fun, which brings us to the happy factor. Short-term positive change in behaviour as well, and one student reported turning off lights more often. Now, I know that can sound very small, but I don't know if any of you noticed sort of in the last 20 years, the smoking or anti-smoking campaign has been quite a lot led by children, you know, sort of giving out to their parents and saying, I don't want you to die, you have to stop smoking, it will kill you. And we do actually believe that a lot of the changes in behaviour can come from children. Once children have an understanding of something, they bring that into the home, it's what they do. And long-term behavioural and attitudinal changes, there's a question mark against that because we were only in year 1 at that stage. So I kind of know what that's doing there. The teachers' new ways of teaching STEAM subjects, and increased understanding of STEAM and related environmental issues. Collaborations as well, new supports in the community. This was important for the Ryan Institute, again, to get out into the community rather than be seen as, you know, a university organisation, and increased enthusiasm. The scientists had a new appreciation of their topic and new tools for teaching and support for career development. new connections, stronger links with the community, and the institute itself then more impact, more diffuse efforts, increased profile, community connections, and possibility for future collaborations as well with an organisation like ours. The university is quite strong in sort of partnering with, they've partnered with Druid Theatre Company, which is a world-renowned theatre. They partnered with a number of festivals. So for us, it was a way of partnering with them as well. What next? 2013 to 2014, we decided we would work with 3 schools and we would do a 3-year project with them. So we're now just going into the 3rd year. One is a city school. It's an Educate Together school. I don't know if you have them over here. I believe you do. It's a very different way of teaching to the regular national school teaching that we have in Ireland. The second one was a boys' national school in Gort. It's a very small school. It has, I think, 4 teachers, and it's in a rural community. And the third one is in a place called Baboró, which is outside Galway City, but is a kind of a mix of rural and urban, because a lot of people commute to the town, they commute into Galway City. So it was a real mix in terms of the cultural sort of, a lot of farming children and then a lot of children who would originally have been living in the city and would have moved out. The scientists, all from the university, Dr. Edward Curry, who works with the Digital Enterprise Research Centre, and he's actually become known as Dr. Beast in his particular school that he works with now. Maeve Duffy is an engineer and she works with the Power Electronics Research Centre, and her particular area of expertise is in energy harvesting from people, so that's what she was focusing on. The Digital Enterprise Research Centre focuses on smart devices. And the Irish Seaweed Research Group, being a coastal Atlantic city, it kind of made sense that we would work with a group like this, and they worked with the Galway Educate Together school. So the artists we've worked with in the last year and this year, Oisín McGann, who's a writer and illustrator, and he worked last year with all of the schools. So he was instrumental in, what he wanted the students to do was to think about a low carbon future and then start writing stories and creating a storyboard. And he did a thing with them over, how do you create a character? What do you do with your characters? Is there a goodie and a baddie? How does the story work? And they went on then to do some scratch programming, and they created digital stories and games. And then this year we're working with a set designer, a puppeteer, a video artist and filmmaker, and Sarah Knight, actually, who's the coordinator, sorry about that, for the Ryan Institute. And they're doing 3 different things. In the school out in Baboró, they've just moved into a new building. And the new building has rainwater harvesting. It's got a whole load of things going on. So they're going to make a film about the school, about its lower carbon footprint, about the impact it will have over a period of time, and about how that school will work for the community. Because although the community, we've asked some questions in the community about, what do you think of this school? And they go, yeah, it's lovely. But they don't actually know what the impact of that school is or how they've lessened the impact on their environment. So the idea is that each of these groups will now leave a legacy in their community, and their legacy in the school in Baboró will be a film created by the students using the skills of storyboarding and directing and lighting and all of that to actually create a film. Oh my God, I've only got 2 minutes. The school out in Gort, the boys are so into the whole engineering thing and they just want to be making and doing. So what we've done with them is they're creating a puppet theatre, a small puppet theatre, which will be powered by people power, literally. They're going to use, they'll do the lighting with dynamos and stuff like that, but they also, there are some literacy challenges in that school and language acquisition challenges, because a lot of them are not from Ireland. So the whole idea of using, if they create a puppet theatre, then they have to create shows. And by creating shows, what they have to do is they have to write a story, they have to create characters. So creating the plays in itself, that's a whole sort of approach to literacy that they wouldn't have been using. And Sarah Knight she's the outreach coordinator for the Ryan Institute, but she's doing workshops around the students in Galway Educate Together are going to install an aquarium. But along with the aquarium, what they're going to do is, they've wanted to do this for a long time. They've been working with the Seaweed Research Group, but now what they want to do is they want to not just create an aquarium, but also create lesson plans around the environment in the aquarium, around the sustainability of the fish that are actually in the aquarium, how that works and what grows in the aquarium. And they're going to do that on smart devices, you know, on iPads and stuff for the younger children. So the legacy in that school is that the older children will create lesson plans for the younger children to work with. Am I done nearly okay? They've also done digital, they did scratch programming. I do have a very small short film, it's 3 minutes, but I might not show it because it's, sorry, Chloe's given me dirty, so I'm going to show it to you because I just think it's hilarious how they have gone from one sort of completely different. This is the school in Uachtarord, and this was last year.
And let's go outside. Come on, all here in front. A stereo would take 52 hours of jumping jacks to run for an hour. A television would take 310 hours of jumping jacks.
The BEAST project is about bringing primary school kids together with artists and scientists to be able to understand the creative aspects of science, but also the innovative aspects of art, as well as a means to express that.
What about the DVD player?
In the school of Uachtarord, I'm working as a scientist with the kids in the area of energy management, helping the kids to understand where energy comes from, how it's generated. And we also talk about the renewable sources of energy as well, things that are more friendly to the environment, such as wind and solar.
That's pretty amazing, isn't it? How many hours a day is the stereo used? Anybody having it more than 3 hours a day? Hands up.
I also work with the kids and to help them understand how we can be more energy efficient within our environment. So how they can be more energy efficient at home.
For lunch, 5 people for dinner, 5 sets of clothes to wash.
Last week I had asked them to go home and to identify all of the different things in their house that are actually consuming electricity. And then we identified different types of what we called energy vampires.
Even if stuff is turned off, it may still be using energy. Anybody have a guess? Xbox 360, it uses 20 kilowatts a year. It uses about 2,000 watts.
And then we basically give them an energy action plan that allows them to go home and work with their parents to help reduce the energy consumption of their house.
We can do something, can't we?
So when I was talking earlier about, you know, children saying, you know, don't smoke, it's going to kill you or whatever, this kind of impact at home, like parents in this particular school have said, it's had a solid impact. You know, the kids are going home and going, turn off that tap when you're cleaning your teeth, and they're using it's very basic, but nevertheless, it's impactful.
Basic storytelling skills with kids. You introduce the basic elements of the story, and then later on introduce the theme of the environment. What do you do? What were the 3 Ps? At the start, I talked about how they come up with ideas, and then I talked about the basic elements of the story. So people, place, and problem. 3 Ps, and how you use them to build the story. And you know, you could say, well, alternative energy, it's very hard to make that exciting, but actually if you say, what if you didn't have electricity? They're on an island, nobody's going to solve this for them. And I was asking what problems you would have if you didn't have electricity.
My mom said using the shop, but the shop was closed and the other shop is a few miles away, but the car's broken and we have to go.
Well, they started, all of a sudden they say, yeah, there is drama in this, there's a reason you have to deal with this. And if you can make kids think about how one person might care, or how they can make one person care, then they'll start caring.
Okay, I've gone way over now, I know. So I think, I don't know if anybody has any questions. If you'd like to ask me anything, I could go on for another 20 minutes, but I won't. For us, it's been an amazing project because we're only 2 years into it, we've 1 year to go, but we know that the impacts are there, and we also really like the use of using creativity to teach sciences.